So you probably just finished writing your book and you've most likely gone through a few drafts and probably a few rounds of your own self-edits, and now you are preparing to dive into the most expensive part of publishing, which is finding your editor. I know when I finished writing my first book like 8 years ago, I had no idea about all of the different stages of editing. I thought that by editing, I needed to find someone who would pick up grammatical errors and somehow just make the book shine and prepare for publication. I had no idea. One, how expensive it was going to be, and two, the different stages. So in this video, I want to talk about the different stages and make it really clear if this is your first book, what kind of editors you need to look for, and the stages in what order they are normally in. And these stages are developmental, line editing, copy editing, proofreading, and I also, if you stay tuned till the end, I'm going to talk about when to send your manuscript to beta readers. First, I do want to mention that you may have more than one editor. It's very common to have one editor for developmental, another editor for line editing, and a different editor for copy editing, and a different one for proofreading. Or you can have one editor who does both developmental and line, and then another editor who does both copy edits and proofreading. Or you just have the one developmental editor who likes to really just focus on that portion and recommends you finding someone else who does line editing, and maybe they also do copy editing. Whatever the case, I do recommend getting more than one, just because when an editor gets to the copy editing and proofreading portion, because they have been so close with your manuscript and from looking at it over and over and over and over again, they're gonna miss certain things like typos. So you do want to give it to a fresh pair of eyes so that they can revise it and find things, grammatical errors or typos that your previous editor missed. Okay, so the first one is developmental. What does a developmental editor do? Well, they take a magnifying glass into your manuscript and they look for things specifically such as plot holes, weak character development, sometimes issues in consistency if you have them, which, bringing that up, they will be looking for these certain issues. Maybe your dialogue is confusing. The developmental editor will point that out. They help you bring your story into a concise level so that when your readers are reading it, everything flows through, it makes perfect sense, your plot is strong, there is a strong character arc, and it's consistent, and there are no plot holes by the time you publish your book. A lot of times when we do our self-edits, we will try to look for these things, or we forget to look for some of these things. Things just get missed because we are so close to our manuscript that sometimes when we write something, it makes perfect sense in our brains, but to someone else, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So the developmental editor will catch these things. I highly recommend not skipping the developmental stage. Even authors who are six-figure authors and they have written 20 books, they might get into the mode in a specific genre where they don't need a developmental editor anymore because it does get easier the more and more you write in a specific genre. But even they say when they switch to a different genre, they get a developmental editor, because we don't know everything. We can't possibly know everything. So it is a very important stage to do, and it is the first stage. Do not go on to a line edit before your developmental edit, because things will change. Which brings me to line editing. That is the second one. A line editor does two things. The first thing is they work line by line with sentence structure, tweaking, fixing, and making sure that each sentence in your manuscript reads clear to the reader. They take a close look at word choice, and they may even change or suggest sharper words to use, stronger verbs to use, so that your manuscript's a little bit more powerful than what it was previously. The second thing they do, which ties into the first thing, is they really look at the tone of your writing and if it remains consistent throughout your manuscript. They look for the pacing to make sure that the pacing of your sentence structures are consistent throughout. Where there is an action scene, they may suggest your fight scene, you're taking a little bit too long to describe the edges of the swords instead of really just poof, 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 getting to the point, because it is an action scene, so you want it to keep going. Whereas there are other areas where it may require for you to give that much more description and detail, and maybe you're missing some of that. So they will catch on to that. They will probably write comments on it and fix word choices and line edits, literally like change the syntax or change the structure as they go. Here is where people get really confused. Sometimes a writer might hire a copy editor thinking that it's their job to do the line edit and that they will change your sentence structure for you. And you might find a copy editor who is very by the book with the copy editing, literally by the book, because it's called the Chicago Manual of Style. And they will not do that. They're not going to touch your sentence structures. Or you might find a copy editor who will assume that you want them to line edit. I personally really hate that. I hate that. It's happened to me quite a few times. I will hire a copy editor after my manuscript has gone through the line editing, and the copy editor will line edit over the line editor's work. Why do they do this? Well, because they are charging you for what they think you want. So it doesn't mean that there is anything wrong with your sentence structures. No, but they will do something to prove that they are doing the line editing, thinking that that is what you want. And in the past, it has caused a kerfuffle because I'll go back to my line editor and be like, what do you think about these sentences that the copy editor is changing? And she will be like, there was nothing wrong with the sentence before. I don't know why they're changing it. Well, that's why. There's a huge confusion between what a line editor does versus a copy editor. No. When you hire your copy editor, you let them know, unless you do want them to line edit, but if you just want them to copy edit, let them know, I am hiring you for specific copy editing according to Chicago Manual of Style, which is the usage we are using today. So, what does a copy editor do? They now look for grammatical errors. They look for consistency, different kind of consistency, not character consistency, nothing to do with the plot, nothing to do with any of that, but the consistencies having to do with spelling. If you have spelled a character a certain name, and suddenly, let's say my character Addison, you can spell Addison Adison or double D. So if I accidentally make a mistake and I change that up somewhere in the middle, the copy editor will catch it. That's their job, to catch these spelling consistencies. Consistencies in numerical, if you're going to spell out 1990 whatever, or the numerical digits, it is the copy editor's job to tell you, hey, we don't write that out anymore, or It is okay to write it out. I don't know because I'm not a copy editor, but they know these things. Things like M dashes versus N dashes. If you're doing American spelling or if you're using British spelling, they know these consistencies. And so you let them know I'm writing in American English or I'm writing in British English, and they will edit accordingly. So generally, they look for spelling, punctuation, grammar, and some copy editors, which is a plus, will even let you know if you have been making a false statement. This is usually for nonfiction and less for fiction, especially if you're writing epic fantasy. What do they know what the laws in your other world are? I heard someone the other day even call copy editing formatting. It's not the right technical term. So if they go around hiring a formatter and expecting a copy edit, they're going to get a book ready to upload, and maybe they just thought that was the whole process and their book didn't get copy edited. No, not good. It's very important to learn these terms. So the next one is proofreading. Here's another one that gets confused. Sometimes people think that a proofreader does what the copy editor does, and they look for all of these consistencies and fix all of the grammar, specifically looking for grammar. No. A proofreader is the last stage of editing, and what they are doing is literally proof reading. What does that mean? It means they are looking for typos, and yeah, they might find grammatical errors, but they might find them. They're looking for them, but they're not making the correct grammatical changes and looking to make grammatical changes. They're basically trying to find anything that the copy editor accidentally missed because they were looking at the manuscript for too long. That's what a proofreader does. It's the last stage, and it's the cheapest stage. How much do these editors cost? It's hard to tell you. It can range from $550 for a developmental edit to some editors combine the developmental and line editing stage for $550, all the way to $2,000. So honestly, do your research and find the editor. Granted that, you look up to see that they do have experience developmental editing and line editing and copy editing, and make your decision on where you are as an author. If you're first starting out, people might tell you, yeah, don't cheapen out in a developmental edit, but that doesn't mean go for the most expensive. Okay, think about your return of investment, look for editors that offer payment plans, and really just do your best to give your manuscript the best quality edits you can give it, because this is your investment. Once you publish your book and you're putting your name out there, and a reader loves your cover and picks up your book and it's full of plot holes, because grammar, I personally, if there's a bunch of typos, it doesn't bother me, because I will email the editor privately and let them know, hey, I found these typos, because typos happen. They happen. But some readers can't get over the fact that typos happen, and they will give you a 1-star review because, you said "der" instead of "the." All right. So anyways, and now because you have watched up to this point, I want to discuss a little bit about beta readers. Not all authors use them. It is advised, and sometimes can be a real pain in the butt. Okay, when do you give your manuscript to beta readers? I have heard of authors giving beta readers their manuscript after line editing, or after the whole thing is completely edited. I disagree, because if you are giving your manuscript to a beta reader, in order to get their feedback and then go back to make changes to meet those reader expectations, now you are going to have to rehire your line editor. So why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense to me. Okay, why you're finding beta readers, you might want to consider giving them the manuscript before the developmental edits or after the developmental edits. If you're giving it to them before the developmental edits, then you have already done a few rounds of edits yourself and you don't think there are any plot holes, and you might tell your beta readers, hey, help me out a little bit. If you find a plot hole, let me know, so that it makes it a little bit easier for my developmental editor, and maybe you won't have to pay that much in editing. If you give it to them afterwards, then keep that in mind that if you do make a change, it might create a domino effect on, plot holes or whatever. But either way, you don't want to skip the developmental stage of editing. Maybe you are up to the point in your genre where you don't need it and you go right to copy editing, and that's great for you. But for everyone starting out, don't skip it. Don't skip line editing, but if you do skip on line editing, just don't skip on developmental editing. All right, guys, I hope I made this concise enough for you to follow. I'm so sorry. I know that it was a mouthful. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments down below and let me know your thoughts on editing and how your process is going. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.